I'm Sean, I'm 25. I graduated from a master's in journalism last year, and well, it's tough, like people aren't willing to give you that start, and you need experience to get a job, and where are you supposed to get that experience, how are you supposed to start? And so we end up in situations where people work for free.
Yeah, I found myself in the exact same situation. I graduated with my degree, and because I had zero experience other than my work placement from college, I found myself going to Australia for work rather than being able to find my first job here in Ireland. So I found I was actually very glad to have that job over there because it was my first kind of lab job. I'm a chemistry graduate, and I was very, very glad to get that over there.
I think with the main factor of being young, I think I'm pretty happy to do some work experience or maybe move abroad for a short time. It's the idea of that having a cut-off point for that, not going into your 30s and beyond still struggling with not being expected to work for free and not being able to ever develop a career, to always be cut down at quite a low level. So I think it's just feeling slightly hopeless, but I think it's up to us to kind of do something, because being a young person, we still look for a lot of guidance, and it's not there at the moment for what we need, because what we need is so different to people 5 or 10 years ago. I think it's hard to be the leader in that situation.
Yeah. I don't know if it's the same in a lot of industries, but currently at the moment, for me, the only work I can get are contract work, be it 3, 6, 10-month contracts, and literally you're going from contract to contract. And if you have to relocate, from all over parts of the country, so be it. You can't have yourself tied down in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, well, with the media and journalism, it's in a huge state of flux because print sales are way down and people are just getting their news for free online, and so most companies don't really know what to do with that. How do they charge? So they don't really know where they're going at all, and so they're not taking on new people, so it's a tough time. Motivating yourself to apply for jobs and keep applying, even though most places won't even get back to you, that's a bit soul destroying. So where do you go from there?
Just not only are you not working, but you have to try and find things throughout the day to try and keep yourself going. Kind of like personally now, I've started running and just kind of made more effort, more hobbies to try and keep the mind active and the body active as well, because if you keep thinking about it, you'll get yourself down.
I definitely find that's routine. That's really important when you're unemployed, but it's also quite difficult to do a lot of things to keep yourself motivated. That you don't have a lot of money to do anything. You've a lot of restrictions because you have to be available for work. You can be stuck at home a lot of the time, because in my situation where I want to build up a visual arts practice, a lot of artists need second jobs to do that, and I also lack the numbers of years of experience to get into other careers and other jobs. So it kind of leaves me in a position as someone who's unemployed where I'd get out of the house, but there's only so much of that. You can feel quite trapped.
It's amazing the way that the days and weeks just melt away when you're like that. There's no routine. It's just like, what did I do this week? Not much.
Yeah, I find that as well. After a while, I get slightly cabin feverish at home, that I'll even just go outside, or even go kind of say if a friend is off from work that day, just go visit them, just try and break up the day a bit.
Yeah.
So I was joking with friends saying, I'll buy myself a 5,000 piece jigsaw puzzle there last week. I was actually contemplating it, just something different, just to break it up.
I found if there was somewhere to go, even if there was somewhere I could go and meet other people my age who aren't working, that would be so much better, because there are a lot of people I know that are they're living far away, or they have to work far away, but it's just there's no sense of community anymore. It's quite isolating. Yeah. I think that with the talk of the recession and young people being unemployed, there's a lot of talk about feeling depressed about it, and I think that it can be a bit kind of ambiguous with there's issues of mental health, and then there's also issues of just feeling slightly hopeless, which are quite easily fixed. But I think now's the time to start putting in structures, to start dealing with what we've all experienced with sitting around at home, and it's holding us back from finding work or even getting on with things.
Well, personally, I've only finished my last contract in the last month or so, and I have been applying, and I have been getting really good feedback. But in the industry at the moment, I have to apply through agencies, and those agencies in turn have to get back to the employers themselves, and it's all this kind of referring as to whether I'm applicable for the interview, and then if there's a second or a third round. And I feel that, I've had good feedback in the while. It's just kind of, again, although I have 2 years experience, like I graduated in 2009, I still need somebody to kind of, see the good in me, if you will, and just kind of give me the chance again, because although it is a lot more than some people have, in the general scheme of things, it really isn't a whole ton at all, really.
I'm going to get a job. I know it. I'm entirely confident. It's just about hitting the right place at the right time, It's just a matter of keeping going and keeping motivated.
I'd agree with that. I do feel like I am going to get a job because I'm doing all the things possible. I'm building up little by little. I hope to do a course in the future, but at the same time, whether that job will last beyond a certain amount of time or whether that it will be completely where I want to go, but I don't feel so bad about that, because I feel like in the last year I feel like I've become a lot more adaptable, that even my mindset of looking into the future, I feel like I'm not holding myself down to like one idea of where I have to go, or feeling bad about that. I think I'm just kind of more looking at what I am achieving at the moment.
But I feel that once you've where you're in the position of unemployment, that you can't realise you really can't pigeonhole yourself, that you really have to be flexible and open to more than just kind of the one idea, really. Yeah, I remember
this time last year I felt very much like I was going into the fourth year of my degree, and I felt like, what is the point of this? Because I have friends who are in the same position as me who didn't study. They're very restricted by where they can go look for work, and after that final year I just kind of felt like, there's no point looking for the worst in the situation or comparing yourself to others. And even with comparing yourself to previous generations, comparing yourself to people around you or previous generations, there's not a lot of good that can come out of it. You really have to think about our specific situation, and for the future as well. I do think we can find work. I think obviously it kind of has to get better, and we're all willing to work, so I feel like slightly hopeful anyway.
Look at our circumstances. I mean, we live in a first world country. People are a bit down at the moment, but things will get better. It never stays down for long. I suppose you just wait and see where things take you. I mean, you have to be open-minded. I would live most places, and I'd work most places. So we'll just see where things go.
Yeah, I would be the same. Ideally, I would like to stay in Ireland. I know time's changing, you might have to tweak that a little bit, but ideally I would like to stay in Ireland, close enough to family. Well, I say close enough to family within the country, but I know people who have put this insane amount of pressure on themselves. They have like the 5-year plan, the 10-year plan, and I really think in this day and age it is quite unrealistic, because you're only going to line yourself up for disappointment and failure, really, because if you're in between contracts, you can't get on the mortgage, keep up their payments, and it just goes down to a spiral, and there's no point putting that undue pressure upon yourself.
Yeah, the plans just don't work these days.
No.
Well, I feel like I'm quite different to a lot of people I know, but I know I'm staying in Ireland, and I hope to be able to travel abroad maybe once or twice a year as an artist, but I'd really love to have a job here working with young people or working in a teaching role, and be able to do my art practice as well. But to be in Ireland is really important to me, and I'm not sure that's something I can really articulate, but it's more of a feeling in me that I feel so strongly connected to where I am that I won't let anything get the way of me being here, because that is my aspiration, to stay here. So even though it might be maybe good for my career to move abroad permanently, I just feel so connected to here that, you know, whether I'll have less money, it doesn't matter to me. It doesn't matter if I don't get a large house or a nice car. I'll stay here anyway.
That's important, to know what you want, you know, and to stick with it. I mean, a huge problem for our generation, I think, is not knowing what we want. It's sort of
Waiting for
yeah.
someone to tell us.
And I reckon part of the problem is our education system that doesn't really make us specialise. Sure, whatever, you know, we all do the same few subjects, and it doesn't specialise early enough.
Yeah.
And so, and our college system doesn't really force us to make any decisions like that. It's practically free, you know. Why just pick any old degree and go with it?
If you feel like it, drop it and then come back then the following year then, and only have to pay for that year then.
Yeah, it doesn't put enough weight on the decision.
No, it doesn't, no.
I feel like with something in the line of JobsBridge, I feel like it has to be long enough to make an actual impact on your resume, and I feel like it's a good thing for young people anyway to be able to get some kind of extra money or something to do, because of the amount that job seekers under 25 get is so much lower, that I feel like the more schemes, you know, the better. As for getting people off and working, that's something that you just have to keep going at, and maybe you'll be lucky. And as for working for free, I as I was saying earlier about the cut-off point as well, but I think that it's not necessarily an evil thing or necessarily the worst thing possible, but I feel like as long as it doesn't take away from actual paid positions, or that there's some kind of regulation where people have some kind of hope of getting the job at the end of that unpaid work experience, that's what worries me about it.
I had quite a bad experience with the JobsBridge scheme. In the end, I ended up getting nothing out of it, aside from the experience, which was great, to be fair. But as a result, I'm kind of skewed against the notion of working for free. I think a lot of companies are taking advantage, and they'll string you along with the possibility of a job, and they just know there's nothing for you.
That's completely wrong. Like, when it comes to working for free, I usually feel that if there is a non-profit maybe organisation, especially within the arts, that I know that's necessary, that there just wouldn't be the kind of community in the arts if people didn't all chip in. But then when it comes to companies that have massive profits, that especially in the positions where it may be unskilled work, we need to be able to say no. And I think young people often wait to be told maybe what they can do. I mean, even thinking about working, it used to be what would you like to do, and now it's, you know, what are you able to get?
I was fortunate enough to actually get paid for my work experience in college. I worked for a pharmaceutical multinational in 2008, and I was fortunate enough to get a placement, and a lot of the placements now for universities, they just are unpaid, and that's it, like, you know. And I feel since the downturn, it is an employer's market. Like, they can determine those lengths of how short the contracts are, you know. What used to be maybe like a 12-month contract could now be a 6-month or a 3-month, because, you know, if they feel that this person does not suit the role, they can just finish out the short-term contract and let that be that. So I feel like I've never had any experience with the JobsBridge, but I kind of feel like if anyone is looking for experience, they should be able to be willing to take it, you know, and, you know, more than likely, you know, like other further future employers might look on that. It's like, well, you work for such and such a period for free. They might kind of take that as an admirable character.
I think the most important thing when it comes to all this is payment in kind, because that goes back to what you were saying about not getting anything out of it. If you feel like you're getting some kind of education or some valuable experience, then for a year, that's a good thing. But it's going on after that, or feeling like you're not getting anything, or that you're working for a company who can afford to have you working, but they just won't because they can.
That's just taking advantage, and you just know loads of companies just say, take on the free person, you know, and there's someone sitting next to you who's doing the same work and getting paid. That's soul destroying.
Take anger at the previous government rather than the current. Well, I know the current government clearly isn't doing enough considering the level of unemployment at the moment, but the fact that certain heads of state were able to walk around, and Mr. Ahern was able just to walk out right before it all just fell out, the floor fell out from underneath us. The fact that like other nations such as Iceland and even in the UK have brought politicians and bankers accountable, that they're actually serving jail sentences. The fact that these guys are walking around on the streets with like ridiculous pensions and perks and benefits, it's a bit sick to your stomach that knowing that like you're not even just yourself but other people are literally on the breadline, and these fat cats are literally just kind of, I hope they feel some remorse and some guilt for what they did, because it is disgraceful. It really would actually be one of those things that would get you down being unemployed.
They don't feel an ounce of remorse. They just have good thick necks on them, and they don't care. They've got their golden handshakes, and it's exhausting. I'd love to see one of them take responsibility, you know, but that's a serious problem.
But not
No
even
one's willing
that
to
for
take
the Irish
responsibility.
state to take a hold of it and like just bring them accountable for their actions. Like, I know how long it took for Mr. Quinn to reach the courts, and even still it's been dragged out, but at least, you know, he's been accounted for. What about the rest of them, you know?
Yeah.
So
But it's so difficult for people who are still in politics to speak out against other people in politics when there are so many connections and vested interests. I think that, or even if someone was in politics, they have so many things that they are trying to get done that I think it is up to the people to decide for themselves that this is important to watch out for, and what do we need so this doesn't happen again. Because I can't feel too much anger personally towards the individuals, because I know that if someone who had the opportunity to take advantage of something, they probably would, and they probably would again. So I think it's just deciding what can we do about this so it doesn't happen again, rather than dwelling too much
On the past, yeah. No, I agree. My previous statement might have
but
sounded a bit venomous.
No, I completely understand that it's a very sore subject, especially how so many people are being affected, and looking back on what happened, and that so many of these people are still being paid so much, and so many people around us are struggling. It can be very hard to take, and I know that it can be a very emotive issue, but I have decided for myself that in the last year or two that there's only so much anger I can feel, and so much kind of upset that until you have to decide that I just, for my own taking care of myself, I have to stay away from feeling too emotional about it.
Yeah, it's like in the media you see all these things, and it's hard not to feel annoyed at these
Yeah.
guys, but ultimately you do just have to get on with it, forget it, it is in the past.